When I was little. Anybody know VeggieTales? Say aye. All right, thank you, Mom. So that was all I kind of knew about, and I believed in Jesus, just like I believed in the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. But the main Christian in my life kind of did some bad stuff to my family. So once my family kind of separated and I stopped believing in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, kind of Jesus went with that. So I became an atheist when I was about 12 years old, and I just didn't believe in God anymore. Fast forward throughout my life, got into drug use, drug dealing, partying. I was a promoter for a club, and that was just kind of the scene I lived in, right? I was a college athlete, but college athletics involves a lot of big fraternity parties as well. So during this time, I kind of, leave that route, get into the business world, and I just have a lot of selfish ambition. I grew up kind of like the poor kid, and I'm like, this is my way to finally, make money and, not have all the things my friends had in high school. So finally do that, and just to kind of survive, I was, probably smoking weed 4, 5, 8 times a day. Anybody know somebody like that? I started that when I was 15 and just kind of became a habit. I would wake up, smoke, and everyone's always like, yeah, Colton, you're so happy all the time, because I was always high. Literally, I was just, and I had eye drops in, so just nobody knew. So, during this time, I'm kind of, I'm living the life I want. I live on the beach, have the car I want, and I see this amazing, beautiful girl on Instagram. I'm like, ooh, follow her. So that was Priscilla. So me and Priscilla start talking for a couple months. And, we're Snapchatting, FaceTiming. I'm traveling, Hawaii, East Coast. And I'm like, hey, when I get back, let's go on a date. We go on a date, and I'm like, I knew this girl had some stuff about, the Bible. She's talking about it on her Instagram. But then once we get to the date, she's like, yeah, I'm waiting until marriage. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that, before this date? You know what I mean? I mean, as an atheist guy in Orange County, that's probably not what I'm looking for. And I'm just like, this is, the most pointless date in the world, right? So I remember going to the bathroom, and I called my buddy, right? He would go out with me all the time. I'm like, man, I think I'm just gotta leave right now. What? And then he's like, dude, you shouldn't leave. You drove her. I'm like, yeah, that is really mean. And I'm like, if we drove separate, 100% I would have just left. I had my keys in my pocket because I was just got to do it. And I was like, you know what? I'll just get really drunk and just have a good time by myself. So whatever. So I'm pounding hard Long Island's, what I used to drink back then. And then after a couple drinks, I start thinking, I'm like, man, I'm a really good salesman. And I start talking to her about God, and I'm like, I don't think she knows enough about God. Maybe I can sell her to stop believing in Jesus, because he's kind of getting in the way of this chemistry we have going on, right? That's my thought process. Not sober-minded, as you guys can tell. So, so we have this weird, very weird, not good first date. And the next day, I'm like, yeah, because we had chemistry. We're talking for 3 months. That's a long time before we finally meet, right? We have chemistry. And I'm like, this Jesus guy's just getting in the way. I just believed as an atheist, you couldn't have a great relationship and connect with somebody without sleeping with them. That's just my internal belief, growing up in this, county. So, long story short, the next day, I'm like, hey, I would love to go to church with you. Because my plan was, I need to kind of get my refresher on the VeggieTales course again, so I can disprove her, right? So I'm like, I need to go to church to kind of remember, because I know sales, I also know how to unsell people, because I study sales, I study human psychology, human behavior. I run a massive sales team, and I motivate people all day. So I'm like, I need to plant seeds of doubt in her mind. So I gotta go to church, kind of understand what's the theology, why do people believe in this, why do they follow this? So I started kind of planting little seeds of doubt, because I could tell she had a lot of faith, but not a lot of logic in her walk. Does that make sense? I could tell she loved Jesus, but she didn't know the logic about why she loved Jesus, just that she loved him, right? Kind of her story, if you guys. So she said that she always believed the Bible was true, but she didn't have a why is the Bible true? Which is great. That's so awesome that some people can do that. That was not me at all. So during this time, for about maybe 2-3 months, I'm going to church to prove her wrong. That's my hidden agenda. And eventually she kind of figures that out. She's like, hey, I can tell you're not really going to church to seek God. You're kind of going to church to prove him wrong, and we aren't equally yoked. And I'm like, what do eggs have to do with yoke? I'm like, what? Only Christians would know that. Read that joke. So then we ended up like stop talking. But I'm telling you, like I spent a lot of my time and energy to figure out questions to stump her. So after we break up, it was difficult. But after like a couple of days, I'm like, man, like I'm like thinking of these questions at night. And I'm like, I kind of want to get these questions answered though. Like I just had like this like burning like desire that like I opened all these loops in my mind to stump her, but like she couldn't prove it. I'm like, dang, I kind of want to like get these questions answered. So I was like, you know what, like I know a lot of people. I have a really big network and I know a very wide variety of people. So I'll tell you guys some of the wide variety of people I knew. At the time, I'm doing very well financially in the business world, and one of my mentors was being mentored by somebody in a secret society. Anybody know what that is? So, being an atheist, I believed, I want to be in a secret society. It's a group of successful men who share secrets about success. I'm like, I want to do that. So I started working with him, and he was giving me like books and literature and different ways of thinking, and I kept kind of getting closer to this guy. But I could tell like he was not a follower of God or Jesus, and he was kind of weird, but I was like, I want to get in that club, right? So started talking to him about Jesus, and I also had people who were like devout Christian and going to church. So I started going to people, taking them out to lunch, and I was like, hey, can you sell me on like why you believe in Jesus? That was actually what I would tell them. Or like why you don't believe in Jesus. I just kind of wanted to hear like logic around like, hey, give me like, I want to know, like I was trying to get all these questions answered. Some people would be like, yeah, I believe in Jesus because I love him. Kind of like Priscilla, you know what I mean? Like, no offense, but I was like, oh, that's awesome for you, but like, that's not a good reason for me to believe in Jesus. And then, my mentor at the time, I was like, hey, I know you don't believe in Jesus, but like, why? And he goes, read my book. And at this time, I have a 300-page book I'm about to read. I take it on a company cruise we're going on. And during this company cruise, such a God moment, right? So a company cruise goes by. And backstory on this guy too, I actually had an event with him with a couple, probably 40 people on my team. So I'm like introducing my team to this guy who's in a secret society, right? Freemasons, I'm pretty sure, is what he was in. So then I go to this cruise, and I'm at this table, and this guy says this line that is very different. And I was like, hey, that's so weird you say that. I've only met one person my whole life who's ever said that. And he looks at me and he goes, we need to talk privately. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I was like, yeah, we can talk privately. Like, what do you want to talk? You know what I mean? He's like, tomorrow, let's talk. So he comes into my room, and the first question he asks is he's like, who's recruiting you? I knew exactly what he was talking about, right? And he was telling me basically his backstory is he was in a secret society, in a Society of the Masons in the East Coast, and he got in it, and he got so far in it, they started getting into satanic ritual abuse. They started going into really gross, horrific stuff. He starts crying to me, this grown man, muscular, good-looking dude, powerful guy, and he's crying to me for an hour about all of the stuff he witnessed. And then he's like, I left, I escaped, and this is not my real name, and I live, over here because they're after me, and I have to kind of change my whole identity. And it scared me because I'd never seen a man afraid of his life, and I never knew secret societies even did that. I just thought the outside in, it's a group of successful guys. I didn't know they get into satanic stuff to get more power and money, and I was just like, whoa. And then he goes, who's recruiting? I told him the guy's name. He goes, I know that guy. And he goes, he's powerful and he's demonic. And at the time, I was not spiritual. I didn't believe in anything spiritual, nothing negative, nothing positive. There's no such thing. If I can't see it and touch it, it's not real. But right when he said that, I had this memory that went back to the event that I hosted for this guy to learn, my team was learning from. And at the time, he's like, hey guys, I want to show you guys my aura. And we're all like, okay, whatever that. I mean, he's going into some weird stuff, the whole entire stuff. He's going into quantum physics and all this weird stuff. He's like, I want to show you my aura. We're like, okay, yeah. So he dims the lights, and after a couple minutes, we actually see his aura. It's this yellow light around him. And then he's like, yeah, I want to show you guys one more thing. I want to show you guys, I forgot what he said it was. And we're like, yeah, show us. And then he morphs into this demonic, I like an actual like creature. I didn't say demon because I didn't know what that was, but he was like literally a creature. I'm front row. I am like scared, so scared. My mom is right next to me. I'm in disbelief. I'm like, Mom, do you see this? I'm like, dear, I'm like, I can't look away. I'm like, Mom, do you see it? She goes, yes, I can. I'm like, what is it? He goes, I don't know. And still to this day, and then it was such a weird experience and happened for like 5 minutes. And it would change faces and stuff like that. It was like a girl, then a guy, then a creature, then a different creature. And then still to this day, none of those people ever talk about it. And I was talking to my buddy yesterday on Zoom. He goes, what did you guys all do after that happened? We said it was such a weird experience, and we just never talked about it. But if I call my mom right now, she'd be like, oh yeah, that was weird. I call my other friends who were there, like, yeah, it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was demon. That was like a demon. And I didn't even understand it because I wasn't in the spirit. I didn't understand like good. So right when I meet this guy on the cruise, I'm like, whoa, and he's like, let me see his book. He goes, oh yeah, this has insignias on it. This is like, you don't even want to be around this stuff. Is like super demonic. And I'm like, this is weird. Right then I believed in like the dark side. Right? I went from like an atheist, like don't believe in anything spiritual, but I started believing in like dark, you know, demonic kind of stuff. But then I was like, but that doesn't mean like Jesus is the one. What if it's like Buddha? What if it's like Hindu? What if it's like New Age? Like, yeah, that's dark. I don't want to be around that. So then I'm like, well, is it Jesus? So now I start looking at like, okay, what's the good? Because that started really freaking me out, and I hate feeling scared. I've had nightmares when I was a kid. I'm like, I've never got to be scared again, right? So I'm like, well, what is the light? So now I'm like, okay, and it's so funny because I'm like, there's no way it can be Jesus. It's just too popular. That's what I thought. I'm like, everybody, it has to be so like, it has to be something like more secretive, more like you have to search for it. It can't just be this obvious, like everybody knows Jesus thing. So I remember, one of the lunches I had, I'm still going out to lunch with the people. One of the guys said, he goes, well, Jesus, the whole faith of Christianity is based upon Jesus's death and resurrection, him coming back to life. And he goes, Jesus is one of three people, dude, no matter who you are. He's either a liar, because he's a real man. He's either a liar, he's a lunatic, that means he's crazy, or he's actually the Lord, he's God. Who is he to you? And I was like, yeah, that is interesting. I have to give him something, because he was a real person. You can't disprove that. So then I started studying that. Then I started like kind of reading the Bible, like looking about like, well, why do people follow Jesus? Like, what is like, how can I disprove Jesus or prove him right or wrong? Like what? And it all comes back to one thing. Did he really come up after he died? That's the whole thing. So I was like, okay, I'm reading the scriptures trying to prove that right or wrong. And I couldn't really relate with Jesus because he's like God, but I could relate with the people who followed Jesus because they were all just like me. They're all guys, 26 to probably 32, right around my age. And I'm reading these stories of these random average guys who like left their careers and their lives to follow this guy they thought was God. And what was really interesting to me is because I really know human behavior when it comes to somebody who has conviction and belief. But it was interesting because they were never 100% convinced that he was God because they had doubts. And they were like, they didn't have full faith, right? Like they would walk on water and they would fall in, or like, then he would, Jesus would get captured, then they got scared, and then they would hide. So I'm like, wow, that's so weird. Like, they left their life, but then they were still skeptical, doubting people, right? Like, they were, like, Jesus was never like, hey, you're awesome. You're like, he was never, like, congratulating them on their faith, like, throughout, like, his 4-year mission. He was almost like, you don't have enough faith. Right? They're like, I tried to cast out demons, but I couldn't do all of it. And he goes, oh, you faithless people, right? And I'm like, wow, that's so interesting. Because that's not the same group of men who spread the gospel after he saw him rise. And I was like, so what happened was they all saw Jesus come back to life and their whole personality changed, right? Like they went from like, oh no, I don't know who Jesus is, to like, hey, yeah, torture me. Like they're willingly getting tortured for probably days. And if you, like, how does that change when you go from like, do you know Jesus? No, I don't believe in Jesus, right? Versus like, I mean, I've never been really tortured, but I felt like in college volleyball, my coaches would torture me, right? Like, like suicide again. And I'm like running and I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, I just give up, right? Like you just want to give up. If you are getting tortured and you don't want to have 100% belief in your cause, you give up. And I'm like, all these people, these 13 guys, right, including Paul, like they literally, they saw him come back to life. And I'm like, wow, that gave me the logic I needed. But it was so funny, I still didn't become a Christian. I was like, I'm like, I need the logic, and I had the logic, and I still couldn't do it. And I had this really I had a lot of drama in my life at this time, like so much drama. I was making a lot of money, had a lot of drama though. And I remember I had 3 people in a month, they all told me I should go see a counselor. And I've been told since I was 11 years old to see a counselor because my parents got divorced and it was difficult. And so finally I'm like, you know what? If I had 3 people in a month who were all close to me tell me I should go see a counselor. So I started going to a counselor. He's a Christian. And I'm starting to like kind of lean on like the Christian side, but I'm like not a Christian yet. And then I really feel like emotionally I needed the logic mentally, but emotionally I couldn't submit to authority. Because I found out through my counseling session, I was looking at God like I looked at my real dad and my biological dad and my biological mom. So the way I was viewing, obviously I don't like authority, hence entrepreneur, right? Like I don't have a boss, right? But I was like, I had to separate like the way that my dad and my mom loved me and raised me is not the way that God did, right? Like that is a different love, that is a different authority. And once I started separating that emotionally, there was one more thing that happened. My friend sent me a YouTube video about a guy, again, who was in he was in a secret society, and then he left to become an evangelist Christian. And that was like, and then during that YouTube video, he says, if you had sex before marriage, you could basically have some demonic thing in you. Yeah. And at this time, I have had sex before marriage, and I was struggling with pornography and lust, and it was like, it was just like ruining me because I was like, I couldn't not stop. And he's like, yeah, you got to break soul ties. That's what the term he was using. And I was like, you got to say this prayer. So I'm like, repeating this prayer over and over again. He's like, all ungodly ties leave me, or something like that. And I said it once, and I was like so upset because I remember like me and Priscilla, we broke up over it was just something about pornography that I was like battling with like I think it was like 9 years ago, and I was just like so upset. I'm like, I believe that it was a soul tie that I had with like some type of spirit of lust. So I start praying this prayer, like all ungodly ties leave me. I'm like looking, and then after like the 15th time I'm getting louder and I have with like more authority, I stop because I have this weird sensation in my belly, and that starts kind of like tingling, and it gets really, really big, and I'm like, bleh. I had this massive burp, and I don't drink carbonation. Right? Like, I don't drink soda. I don't drink Perrier. And I haven't burped in like 8 years. And I was like, what the heck? Like, it was the weirdest thing. And I felt like something left my body. Yeah, amen, right? So, and then during this time, and then the next day, I felt like 90% of this like desire for pornography like completely left me. And I had like this control and like peace around it. And I was like, man, I need to become a Christian. Like, this is everything I need. Like, it literally hit me like, it was like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like every part of my body. And I called my buddy Michael, who's in Texas. I'm like, Michael, like, can you walk me through this thing called the Sinner's Prayer? Like, I need to become a Christian. I haven't talked to him in like in a year. And he's like, Colton? You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, we can go through the Sinner's Prayer. Like, great. So then that's what we do it, and I'm like praying, and I'm like, so I'm a Christian now? He goes, yeah, like you're a Christian. I'm like, yes, let's go. And then like the next day, yeah, it was amazing, right? Yeah, it was amazing. And at this time too, like I didn't even understand why I was smoking weed and drinking all the time. I was still like, I still, didn't just like instantly like, oh, I'm sober, I'm Christian. But like, I started kind of like, wait, should I be, smoking weed? And I was like, why am I smoking weed like every day? Like, why am I drinking stuff like that? And really it was to numb myself from all of the difficult times in my life growing up. I mean, just to give you a quick, backstory, like my dad's on his 4th marriage. My mom is on her 3rd. So that's most of the trauma kind of comes from all those divorces, right? So I just started smoking weed as like to numb myself, and it just became a habit of numbing. And then once I became sober, I became like an angry, irritable sober person, right? Like I was like my emotional, I was probably more enjoyable to be around when I was high because like I didn't know how to control my emotions. So But I realized that the reason that also happened too was because I didn't have hope in eternal life. Because I, as an atheist, I believed I die and then that's it. So my biggest phrase back in the day was YOLO, because I truly believed that. I'm like, I'm going to go out as much as I can, make the most amount of money, have the most amount of fun, and I was doing all those things, and the next day I still felt like there was no joy other than smoking weed again, or doing cocaine, or drinking alcohol, or talking to the next girl. You know what I mean? There was nothing internally that would make me feel good. And then once I had this I just wanted heaven so bad. I'm like, wait, I get heaven? I could have this hope after I die. And at this time too, I was just before Christ, I was living so reckless. I got a motorcycle. I was going 150, 160 on the 73, drunk and high. I stopped caring. I was like, well, if I crash, I crash, whatever. I would take my 7 Series drunk and I would rip around corners. Sometimes I would even hit the curb, slam the curb, oh, there's 10K of damage, whatever. And I was just living I don't care almost, all the time. After this, and I was I had this hope, and I would wake up with joy. And I'm like, this is so weird. I haven't woken up with joy since I was maybe 8 years old. All from Christ. So during this time, I'm not talking to Priscilla at all, but the next couple of days, I'm like, man, she's the catalyst, right? And I'm like, dang it, I have to talk to her and say thank you, But I don't want to talk to her because then she's got to want to date me because I'm a Christian now. And I really didn't even want to, and I was because I didn't identify myself as a Christian yet. I was oh man, Christians are all hypocrites. I don't want to be like that. But then I started, I was I have to say thank you. This has changed my life, my emotional life. So I go to her, I'm hey, can I come over and tell you something? I'm telling her. And I remember, I'm telling her this whole story of what happened. And then she's let me call my Aunt Lindsay, her spiritual mentor. And Lindsay's are you just a Christian to date my niece? I'm no. She's I'm going to walk you through the sinner's prayer. I'm okay, we can do it again. So I'm pray the sinner's prayer again. I'm I'm a real Christian. I'm not messing around. And then obviously me and Priscilla have so much chemistry. And now that we're both pursuing, Jesus, it became really easy to kind of be she was my first Christian friend. None of my friends believed in Jesus. All my friends either made money or smoked weed. I didn't hang out with people who believed in God. So she was my first Christian friend. And then we kind of just, we did life together after that. We're how do we read the Bible? She never read the Bible, right? But she's Christian for 6-something years, never read the Bible, right? So we're reading the Bible for the first time together. We're taking courses for the first time together. And that's when we got, introduced to everything. And the reason why they're doing this event as well is I remember during this 3 months after I became a believer, I'm praying to God, I'm there's no way I could be an entrepreneur in network marketing and be a Christian. Tell me what church to go to, be a ministry, be a pastor. And I'm just waiting for an answer for God to just have this thought download of yeah, quit, go be a pastor. And I was waiting because I felt that would be the easier way to do it. And I just kept hearing this voice is you're exactly where I want you to be. And I'm no, there's no way. I have to be do something different and I just felt there's no way. He equipped me my whole entire life to do what I'm doing now. So then again, I think the reason that, we started the optional worship services at our big events and then now transitioning to this full entire day is just being able to get rid of anything that doesn't involve Jesus, right? Just pursuing him 100% for everything. So I'm super excited that you guys are here today. Thank you, Priscilla. She put on this whole entire event. This is amazing. And I'm so excited that if you guys are getting some breakthroughs today, I love you so much. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, everybody in here who's come here. And I'm excited for the rest of the day.